Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad to be here with all of you tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We're going to have yet another one of our late night conversations. It's going to be awesome. So, yeah, let's do it.
Of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just it's a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action. Welcome, 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 everybody. I am so glad that all of you are here. We're going to do yet another one of our late night conversations. The way this works, for those of you who may not be familiar, I give my opening remarks, which is whatever it is I want to talk about for the evening. Then from there, we do a roll call where I find out after I've given my opening remarks, after I've gone on for an hour or so, or however long my opening remarks are. After that, I do a roll call to find out who is on the other side of the camera, who's watching. Then from there, I answer your questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something that you would like to ask me about in the second half of the show, if you're on YouTube, just send me a super chat. If you're on Rumble, send me a Rumble rant. If you're on Rockfin, send me a Rockfin tip. And that will let me know what it is. It'll give me something to react to. I'll go through them one by one. That's the way we do the second half of our show. So on that note, folks, I think I'm just going to jump in to my opening remarks. Tonight, I just decided I was going to get on here. I spent the day, I did my work in the morning, covered the UN Security Council meeting for RT, covered a very important UN Security Council meeting. After that, I spent the day with a comrade from Britain, our comrade Jyoti Brar of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. We had a great afternoon together just talking politics, talking about strategy for building our organizations, talking about the future of the World Anti-imperialist platform, which is a great development. It was just a great day, and she'll be headed back to Britain shortly, but she had one day. She was in town for the gathering of the Party of Communist USA, and she had an extra day, so we got to spend the afternoon together and evening and talk politics and compare organizations, and it was a really productive afternoon. I'm really glad I did that. Jyoti Brar is a good friend of mine, and she's a great anti-imperialist. She's got real perspective on doing this. And so I was walking back toward my apartment building in the rain. It's a bit rainy here in New York City. It's not a full-on rain day. It wasn't pouring today, but it was drizzling. It was a wet day outside. And I'm walking back toward my apartment. I'm thinking about various things that I've discussed with Comrade Jyoti Brar. I'm thinking about the future of my organization. And I felt the passion. I felt the passion Sometimes you just feel it. Sometimes you just feel it. Something comes over you and you feel the passion. And it was already 8:10, 8:15, but something stirred within me. And I said, you know what? I haven't set the live stream all day and had people preparing for it all day. I don't even have a news item, a news hook to put the live stream on. But I've got something to say. And I've got a rant in me. I've got passion and I've got something to say. So I decided to come back. I set this live stream. I'm not going to bed tonight without saying some things that need to be said. There are some things that need to be said. We are fighting against imperialism. And imperialism is a system. Imperialism is not a policy. Imperialism is not when a country does something. Imperialism is a system. Imperialism is capitalism in its monopoly stage. It is the rule of the world by banks, financial institutions that dominate global trade, huge multinational corporations, trusts, cartels, and syndicates that hold back development, that are keeping the world poor. That is what imperialism is. Imperialism is a system. It is a system that is holding back the potential of humanity. No one should be hungry in our world. No one should be without electricity in our world. No one should be without running water in our world. No one should be without access to the internet in our world. The only reason that that is the case is because of imperialism. No one should be homeless in our world. No one should be trying to cross a border in order to survive and feed their family. No one should be driving to work on roads that are falling apart. No one should be working a full-time job and not be able to live on their own and support themselves enough to have kids. There's a vast abundance in the world today, but that abundance is not available to the people. And that we live under a system where the wealthier the world becomes, the more wealth that is produced, the poorer people get. And a great example of that is self-driving cars. I've used this example over and over and over again because I want you all to hear it. And I want you to tell your coworkers this. And I want to tell you to tell your friends this. This explains what the problem of the world is. Self-driving cars should be a great thing. If the job called driving, the labor of driving, the task of driving was eliminated in a rational world, that would be great because there'd be less work for everyone to do. But in our system, where profits are in command, self-driving cars would lead to riots in the streets, mass hunger, millions of people out of work. That is not rational. There is absolutely no reason that a great technological innovation that would save lives from car accidents, that would save human labor power like self-driving cars, there is absolutely no reason that that should lead to poverty and economic insecurity. But that is the world we live in. That is the system of capitalism, imperialism. Capitalism in its monopolistic stage of imperialism that we live under. A system of profits in command. And I want everyone watching right now to hear me say this. And I say it at risk of sounding insincere. I don't want to sound insincere. I don't want to sound like a demagogue. I don't want to sound like I'm just blowing smoke. So don't misunderstand me when I say this. Don't blow this up into something that it's not. Just take it for what it is. If you are watching this, on some level, I love you. I don't love you like a romantic partner. I don't love you like a member of my family or someone that I know. I love you. I love you as a member of the human race. I think that you have value. And when I say that I love you, it means that I don't consider you to be a financial calculation. I don't consider you to be an externality. I don't consider you to just be a cog in a machine and a mechanism through which profits can be extracted. I believe that you have intrinsic value. With your brain, with your body, with your humanity, you have value. I want you to exist. You should exist. The world is better because you're here. And in fact, we need more people in this world, not less. And you being here, the world is better off because you're here. We need more people in this world, not less. We need more human beings. Human beings are creative creatures. Human beings in just a few thousand years have gone from hunter-gatherers in the woods to space travel and iPhones. We have transformed our planet in a way that no other species could even imagine doing. I love you. I don't know much about you. And who knows, if I met you, you might get on my nerves, but that's not the point. I consider you to have great value. Humanity in and of itself is valuable. And we are in a period where the global imperialist system has determined that in order to continue to exist, it has to go to war with the very existence of humanity itself. We live in a world that is dominated by anti-human thought. We live in a world where anti-human sentiment is everywhere, and that reflects not the values of the bulk of the human race and not the scientific realities, but the feelings of the ultra-rich. Their system cannot survive because they don't have machines. They don't have room for us at the assembly line. Their system doesn't have a place for us. Human labor has become more and more efficient. And we live in a system, the only system that has ever existed, where people become hungry because there's too much food, where people become homeless because there are too many houses, where the ability to produce more and more wealth leads to greater and greater poverty, where people are hungry because there is too much food. This is the capitalist system in the imperialist stage, where big banks and corporations are actively holding back economic development, keeping the world poor in order to stay rich, in order to keep the world centered around Wall Street and London, in order to make sure that profits flow into the hands of Wall Street bankers and London monopolists, into the hands of multinational corporations. They are actively creating a global situation where they want countries in Africa to not be electrified. They want countries in Latin America and whole regions to not have running water and electricity. They want to impoverish whole sections of the globe. They want to hold back development so that they can stay at the center of an international financial empire. This is called imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, the export of capital. Capitalism in its monopolistic stage. Trusts, cartels, and syndicates. the seizure of raw materials, and the export of capital. This is what Lenin described, and it is enforced with war. And if any country dares to break out of that system, that country is attacked. That country has sanctions put on it. That country has regime change, destabilization efforts imposed on it. That country suffers from invasions, bombings, cruise missile attacks, media demonization. The world today is divided between the majority of the world that is still under the domination of the dying British Empire Western imperialist system and the new world that's rising from the East, centered around Russia and China and the BRICS alliance. There is a new economy in the world today. I was just in Russia. I saw that world economy. I saw that. I saw all the African countries that were there at the World Youth Festival. I saw all of the people from Central Asia, all the people from various regions around the world, Latin America, who are a part of this new emerging economy. There's a new world rising in the East. And that's the future. And it's not just the future of the countries that have already joined. It's not just the future of the countries that will join it soon. It is the future of our country. It is the future of our country. The only hope for America to get out of the nightmare we are currently facing, the only hope for America is to break out of imperialism. We need a government of action that fights for working families because our leaders are actively trying at this point to grind the United States into poverty. It's not enough to keep Africa poor. It's not enough to keep Asia poor. It's not enough to keep South and Central America poor. They now want to make Pennsylvania poor, Ohio poor, Illinois poor, Michigan poor, Texas poor, Utah poor. They're trying to grind our country into poverty. That's what they're trying to do. In order to keep their profits flowing, they're trying to grind our country into poverty, to make us pay for the crisis that they have created. Their system can't handle us. Their system has no place for us. And as they move toward a new world war internationally, they're moving toward a low-wage police state at home. That's what they have to offer. A low-wage police state, pessimism, and the danger of a new world war. This is their system of imperialism, of monopolistic capitalism. This is their system in crisis. It is a crisis of overproduction. It is a crisis of the tendency of the rate of profit to fall. It is a crisis of profit being in command of production and the irrationality of greed and the invisible hand having control over the centers of economic power. And the future is the countries that have broken out of that system. The future is China, where the Communist Party has lifted 800 million people from poverty, has built huge railway systems, the fastest trains in the world, the largest telecommunications manufacturer in the world. Huawei Technologies makes way better phones than Apple does. That's the future. The future is Russia. It's heroically fighting to protect the people of the Donbass region. That's heroically building bonds with the people of the world, where they just built a statue of Fidel Castro, where they've built the Kerch Bridge, the longest bridge in Europe that can withstand attacks, where they're investing in the young people and mobilizing them for the country. The future is the Islamic Revolution of Iran that refuses to give Israel an inch and has rallied the people of the Middle East to stand up to Israeli aggression, to stand with the Palestinians, to build their country up with a construction jihad in the 1980s, to industrialize and provide a decent living standard to their people. The future is Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua, where they've provided education, they've wiped out illiteracy, they've electrified, they've done so much to improve people's living standards. Cuba has the greatest medical school in the world. The future is the African countries that have kicked out the United Nations and welcomed in Russia and China to build power plants and to industrialize and to move their countries away from the impoverishment of the international bankers. The future is in the BRICS. The future is in the Belt and Road. The future is in the Eurasian Economic Union. The future is in the Bolivarian alternative of Latin America. The future is in the axis of resistance, standing with the Palestinians. That is the future of the world. And it is a future based on a different economic model where greed and the drive of a small group of wealthy people to make profits does not define economic activity. It's a model where countries trade with each other on the basis of win-win cooperation. It's a model where profits are not in command, but the banks and the factories and the industries and the centers of economic power are forced to work in the interests of society overall. It's societies that are investing in fusion energy. Societies that are celebrating the achievements of technology and training young people to be engineers and scientists, not offering them a life of short-term service sector jobs and opioids and pornography and video games. There is a new world. And the leaders of our country are doing everything they can to battle against this new world, to oppose this new world. And at the same time, they're fighting this new world. They're fighting Russia. They're fighting China. They're fighting People's Korea. They're fighting Venezuela and Iran and Cuba and Nicaragua. They're also fighting against you. They're fighting against you. They don't think the problem is their system and the irrationality of a system where profits come before people. They think the problem is you. They want to get rid of you. They don't want you to exist. They have decided you're too expensive in their high-tech, low-wage economy. They want to get rid of you. They have decided that you need to be poor. They have decided there needs to be less of you, that you can't have children. You can't reproduce. You can't live a comfortable life. You need to own nothing and be happy about it. You need to live in a pod. You need to eat bugs. You need to be degrown. That's what they have decided is your future. Because they see you as a financial calculation. Because they see humanity as a cancer. as a curse on Mother Nature. They don't like you. They don't like you because their system cannot handle what you've got right here. You've got a brain. You've got creative power. And with your brain, you can strive to advance. You can create. We were hunter-gatherers in the woods, but then we strived and advanced, and we got so good at hunting and gathering with our sticks and rocks. There was scarcity, and we needed a new social system. And at one point, we were living in feudalism. But we invented things. The printing press was brought into Europe from Asia. The Silk Road brought in trade, and pretty soon we had developed to the point that we had to rip apart feudalism and advance toward capitalism, a new stage, because development was being held back by the feudal system. And now, human creativity and intelligence in the age of AI and in the age of 3D printers, in the age of satellites, in the age of computer explosive industrial expansion. Human creativity and human brilliance has gone beyond the narrow restrictions of the profit system. The irrational system of production for profit cannot handle the great innovative breakthroughs that the human mind has come up with. We have gotten so good at production, so good at making things, so good at forcing the environment to serve us in more and more efficient ways, that the system of production for profit, the system of banks and factories and industries and centers of economic power just operating according to the interests of the wealthy people who own them, that system has become outmoded. It has entered a prolonged crisis of overproduction. And the only way they can save it is with forcible degrowth. They're actively trying to destroy humanity. They're actively trying to destroy food production, prevent farmers from growing food. They are actively trying to prevent people from having children. They are actively trying to forcibly impoverish and depopulate the world so that they can stay at the top. And they're terrified because in opposition to them is a world order that is not restricted in the same way, that does not have profits in command. Socialism with Chinese characteristics, Bolivarian socialism, not capitalism, but Islam. The socialist-oriented market economy of Vietnam. All of this is not limited and restrained by the same problems that the capitalist system has in this new world with this new type of economy, where the means of production and the centers of economic power are organized to serve human needs and not the profits of a wealthy few. They don't have these problems. They don't need the countries they trade with to get poorer. Those countries can get wealthier, and they can get wealthier at the same time. They don't need to hold off self-driving cars because it'll lead to mass hunger and riots in the streets. They've got a system where they control the means of production, they control the banks, they control the factories, they control the economy to make sure that as technology advances, all of society gets wealthier and wealthier. Profits are not in command. Society rationally controls the means of production in order to unleash the creative power of human beings to expand. That's called socialism. No, socialism is not everyone getting paid the same wage. Socialism is not a welfare state. Socialism is not a worker cooperative. Socialism is the elimination of profits in command. It is a society where the banks and the factories and the industries and the centers of economic power are organized to serve society overall and not the profits of a wealthy few. It is overcoming the narrow horizon of bourgeois right and the irrationality of the market so that growth is no longer restrained and human creativity and creative capacity can expand. The problem of overproduction is eliminated and society becomes wealthier as more wealth is created. It is rational control and central planning of the means of production. The banks, factories, and industries, the centers of economic power, the major natural resources, and the commanding heights of the economy are forced to work in the interest of society overall, not simply for the profits of the small group of people who own them. That is what socialism is. And socialism has proved itself to be the next stage. And it is socialism that lays the basis for the new economy that's emerging around the world. Not all the countries that are part of the emerging economy are necessarily socialist, but it is socialist property. Nationalized banks, nationalized and state-controlled industries, state-controlled natural resources. It is socialism that lays the basis for the new economy. And the new economy that is emerging in the world, the BRICS economy, is socialist adjacent and socialist attached and socialist dependent. And so you want to argue about the class character of each of these different countries, there's no point. There is a socialist economy in the world today. And that socialist economy is the future. And there is a dying Western capitalist system, a system based on profits and greed. And that system is fighting for its life. And that system is in all-out war to destroy Russia. And that system is in all-out war to destroy China. And that system is in all-out war to destroy Venezuela, to destroy Cuba, to destroy Iran, to destroy Yemen, to destroy Syria, to destroy any place that has socialism. Any place where they don't have the control. Because those places are showing that we don't need them. Those places are showing, and the emerging, the independent countries on the African continent, and there's so many corners of the world now. This new economy is showing, we don't have to come up with some crazy scheme where people live in pods and eat bugs. We don't have to have a low-wage police state. We don't have to degrow. We can just continue growing. It's Wall Street that's the problem. It's London that's the problem. It's the imperialists, the huge ultra monopolies. It's Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, Warren Buffett and the Rockefellers. They're the problem. The problem is not humanity. And there's no need to try and stuff humanity back in a bag and restrain humanity just so they can stay at the top. It's not necessary. Their elaborate schemes to try and suppress humanity to fit inside the box of their narrow, profit-oriented system. It's not necessary. We don't need to degrow. We don't need to restrain human creativity. We don't need to stop children from being born. We don't need to impoverish people. We don't need to tell African countries they can't electrify. We don't need to set up a prison for profit system. We don't need to set up a police state. We don't need social media to brainwash people to be unhealthy. We don't need any of this. None of this is necessary. Humanity can keep growing as long as we eliminate the rule of profits. If we can simply take control of the means of production like they've done in so many corners of the world, if we can organize and control the means of production, there won't be any problem anymore, and growth can continue, and human beings can live better. I am an anti-imperialist. Let me repeat that. I am an anti-imperialist. And to be an anti-imperialist and to be a communist are synonyms. And to be a communist and not be an anti-imperialist is an oxymoron. There are a million forms of fake communism out there. There's social democracy. And that was a form of Marxism that supported the British colonizers and the imperialists, didn't want to have a revolution. There's Trotskyism, and the theory of permanent revolution, instability, and that is not genuine communism. There's anarchism. There's libertarian communism. There's ultra-Maoism. There's a million forms of fake communism. A million interpretations, a million pictures you can put on your shelf, a million t-shirts you can buy, a million books that you can hold up and make Facebook statuses about, but they all have one thing in common. Vladimir Lenin came forward at the time, World War I, and he said, we're not fighting capitalism anymore. We're not fighting. It's not a fight between the factory worker and the employer. It is a fight of all humanity against imperialism, against this Western system that led to the bloodbath called World War I, that led to the horrors of the Belgian colonialism in the Congo, that led to the devastating destruction of the Philippines and the Philippine War. It is this brutal system of imperialism, capitalism in its monopoly stage. That is what we are fighting against. And every form of fake communism, no matter what it calls itself, anarchism, Trotskyism, Maoism, Mao Zedong, MLM, anarchist, whatever they want to call themselves, whatever pictures they put on the wall, they are all the phony communism out there. It's all premised on not fighting imperialism. They want to fight the right wing. They want to fight the racists and sexists and transphobes and homophobes, and they want to fight your racist uncle. They want to fight the Stalinist bureaucracy. They all want to fight something other than imperialism. And if you are not fighting imperialism, you are not a communist. And communism and anti-imperialism are synonymous. And every form of fake communism out there says it's about something other than fighting imperialism. And it is not. It is not. Fighting imperialism is what communism means. And if you're not fighting imperialism, you are not a communist. And many of the forces that are fighting imperialism now don't do it in the name of Marxism, Leninism. The Cold War is over. The Soviet Union is not coming back. And there are many forces around the world that are fighting imperialism under the banner of Islam, under the banner of Bolivarianism, under the banner of all kinds of different things. That's fine. Because they're fighting imperialism. They're on our side. And there's a million clowns out there who quote Marx and wear Marx t-shirts and have pictures of Mao on their wall and have pictures of Trotsky and can quote you up and down and backwards, and they ain't fighting imperialism. So fuck them. They have nothing to do with us. Are you fighting the imperialist system? The system that is destroying your community, your neighborhood, trying to march us into World War III, trying to create a police state in this country? Are you fighting that system? Or not? That is all that matters. And if you are on the right side fighting the imperialists, you're a communist, whether you know it or not. You are helping build a world of abundance. You're helping humanity break free from imperialism. You're helping move toward that ultimate stage of vast abundance. So you're a communist. And if you're fighting for that system, you can call yourself anything. You can wear t-shirts. You can LARP about history. You can read books. It doesn't matter. You're supporting imperialism, so it doesn't matter what you call yourself. You are supporting imperialism, so you're not a communist, you are on the wrong side of history. And it's that simple. It's about fighting imperialism. When the Bolsheviks took power in Russia, they were Marxists, revolutionaries, leftists, but they met with the Emir of Afghanistan, who was a monarchist. And they offered him military support and they gave him guns and weapons. Why? He was fighting the British Empire. He was fighting the imperialists. They convened the Congress of the Peoples of the East in Baku, Azerbaijan, and met with all kinds of people from all over the eastern parts of the world. And they met with them and they said, how can we help you? How can we help you fight the imperialists? Because that's what it's all about. It's about opposing imperialism. It's about opposing the system of capitalism in its monopolistic stage. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And anyone who tells you that's not what it's about is not in line with the global communist movement, because there is a global communist movement. And I was with them in Russia. I was at the World Youth Festival. I even spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin. And in the room with me, there were people from Vietnam, and there were people from China. There was a woman from the All China Youth Federation, one of the main communist youth organizations in China. There was another couple people from the Ho Chi Minh Communist Youth Union of Vietnam. The Kim Il-sung youth of North Korea were in that room. The young people of Belarus who rally around Lukashenko and calls himself a socialist and a continuer of the Soviet legacy. They call it the last Soviet republic, Belarus. I was in the room with Nicaraguan Sandinistas. I was in the room with people from Venezuela, people from Cuba. All those people are fighting the imperialists. And they all love Russia because Russia's fighting the imperialists. They all love the Houthis in Yemen because they're fighting the imperialists. And they all love Iran because they're fighting the imperialists. And they all love China because China's fighting the imperialists. They all love those African countries that broke their chains. Why? Because they're fighting the imperialists. That's what it's all about. And the real communist movement that exists in this world is about fighting the imperialists. That's what it's all about. And that's my movement. And that is who I am loyal to. I am fighting the imperialists. I am against the imperialists. And I am not on the side of the imperialists. And I don't care about the minutia and the details. And I will not be swayed by your virtue signaling. And I will not be confused by the silliness. I'm against the imperialists. I'm with the people that are against the imperialists. And my job living here in the United States is to build a movement to save this country from imperialism, because I am a patriot, because I love the people of this country. I love the people of Pennsylvania. I love the people of Texas and Ohio. I love the people of California. I love the people of Utah and Tennessee. I love the people of my country, and I don't want them to live under this rotten system that is killing them and destroying their future and sending them off to die in foreign wars. I don't want them to live under this system anymore. I love my country enough to say that I want this country to break free from imperialism and be reborn. I am so patriotic that I am an anti-imperialist. And sure, there was a time where a layer of the American working class benefited from imperialism. The white picket fence, leave it to Beaver, the comfortable industrial middle class of the 50s and 60s, that's gone. That's ancient history. The labor aristocracy, the aristocracy of labor, has been demolished. And if you really want to fight for America, you really want to fight for your neighborhood, your community, your country, you must fight the imperialists. You want to defend democracy, do it right here at home. Because our real enemy is at home. Our real enemy is the Silicon Valley fascists. Our real enemy is the Wall Street monopolists that are destroying our future. We must fight the imperialists. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And it is fighting imperialism that has given me a purpose in my life. And it is fighting imperialism that has attached me to real forces around the world. There are whole countries that are with us. There are whole corners of the globe that are in our camp. And you better believe in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the kind of people here in America who understand that this is the way the world is going, that understand that America's got to break out of imperialism, it's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. The world is headed in our direction. But we must build the anti-monopoly coalition. We must build a layer of American society that is opposed to the imperialists. Folks, the Center for Political Innovation is a small organization. We have 152 dues-paying members. Not huge. It's a small organization. But of all the organizations in America, we were the ones that were selected by the Russian government to lead the American delegation to the World Youth Festival. We were the ones who were selected to have not just one, but two of our members publicly ask a question to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Two of our members got to directly speak to the Russian president at a nationally televised youth forum. We were invited to be election observers for Russia's recent election. When the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran came to the United Nations last September, they asked for me, the president or the founder, I'm not the president, but the founder and director, ideological leader of the Center for Political Innovation, they asked for me to interview him. The president of the Islamic Republic of Iran sat down with me at the United Nations. Because we are the American division of the new economy. We represent the new world. And we may be only 152 members, but we represent billions and billions of people. We represent the future of the world, and that includes the future of America. We have an important task. We have an important responsibility. And it's not easy. But we are building it. We are doing what must be done. We're building a community of solidarity, a group of people who can work together to help usher in the new world and raise the truth. And, they've rigged social media against us, and they've smeared us and lied about us. They've sent informers and infiltrators into our organizations. They've incited a lot of people who should agree with us and should be our friends against us. But we just keep going. We just keep going because we got a job to do. We have a job to do. And we're doing it. And we're getting it done. And more people want to hear our message. And more people want to feel empowered by our message. And at the end of the day, There's a lot of people yapping. There's a lot of people who do this and do that, but one day they're here and the next day they're gone. But we continue the uphill battle, the long, hard slog up the march, training people, building relationships, forming alliances, learning to trust each other, learning to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. That's us. We're the Center for Political Innovation. We are the anti-imperialists, and we study Marx and Lenin. We study Mao and Stalin. We study Fidel Castro, but we also study the Islamic Revolution of Iran. We also study Bolivarian socialism in Latin America, Hugo Chavez and Maduro and Daniel Ortega. We study the Bible and the revolutionary role that Christianity has played in the world, in the history of the world. We, the city building tendency, the Center for Political Innovation, we have a lot to offer the world. And we are proving it more and more every day. We are doing more and more every day to show the world there are anti-imperialists in America. And anti-imperialism is the future of the world. And you know, I have a few things I'd like to reflect on. There was a friend of mine a long time ago, and he said to me, if you don't know something, don't say it. But if you do know something, if you absolutely know something to be true, don't be afraid to scream it from the heavens. That's a good rule to live by, especially if you're a journalist. If you don't know something and you're a journalist, you better not say it because you don't know it. But if you do know something and you absolutely know something, don't be afraid to scream it from the heavens. I like that. So I think about my life. I think about some of what I've done. Some of what I've seen. Some of what I've been through. And I come to some pretty clear conclusions. And the conclusions that I come to are, I'm an anti-imperialist. This is my movement. This is my people. This is what I was meant to do. Those are the conclusions that I come to. I think about how I got from a little town in Ohio to Cleveland. How I got to Cleveland, where I did anti-police brutality work. I got from Cleveland to New York. How I got from Cleveland to Iran, to the Gulf of Aden, delivering medical aid to Yemen. How I got from Cleveland, from New York to Russia. I think of all that I've been through. I know this is what I was meant to do. This is where I was meant to be. I am an anti-imperialist. And that this gives a level of meaning to your life. This gives a level of meaning to your life that can't be found elsewhere. But I don't misinterpret me as saying that it's easy. Don't misinterpret me as saying that there's not hardship. Don't misinterpret me as saying that there's not people pushing against you. There's not times that it seems like you're running uphill. Do not misinterpret my remarks as saying that, because if you do this, you will be tested. If you do this, people will turn against you. If you do this, people that you love will doubt you, will confront you about it and tell you to stop. If you do this, there will be times you feel like you're just banging your head against a wall hopelessly. There are times when it feels like we're not making any progress. There are times where it seems like everything's falling apart. But then there are times where we surge forward. There are times where our side is winning around the world and our organizational efforts are having a big impact. There are times like that. There are times where you're swimming upstream. You're swimming against the current. It feels like the world just keeps moving in the opposite direction. It feels like you just can't get a break. It feels like you're just pushing, and pushing. But then there's times where the shift happens and suddenly you're moving with the flow of history. But it's the strength that you built up as you swam against the current, as you got stronger, that enables you to really hammer home when the world starts moving in the direction that it inevitably will move. We do not make the course of history. We do not invent or define the development of history. What we have the ability to do is to give guidance to the heroism of the masses. There's a lot of political organizations that think that they're going to organize it, right? That they think that they're going to organize the protests, that they're going to set up the stage and get the permit, and that that's going to be the revolution. And they're wrong. And there are some forces that think there's nothing we can do, and that we just have to go along with whatever the liberals are doing. And they're wrong. Our job is to teach. Our job is to teach and build a network. To build a network of people who understand this, who get it, and can explain it, and can teach it, and define their existence by it. And our job is that when the explosion comes, we have to push the explosion in the right direction. The fight back is inevitable. That boulder is rolling down the mountain. But we have the ability to nudge that boulder in the right direction. The masses are the real heroes. That's what Mao Zedong says in the Little Red Book. The masses are the real heroes, and we should never forget that. The masses are the real heroes. But we are guided and armed with an understanding of the objective laws of history and how material forces develop. We understand that imperialism is what we're fighting. We understand why the countries around the world that have broken free from imperialism, we understand why they're rising. We understand all this stuff. And we can give the guidance to point the explosion that is coming, the inevitable explosion. We can point it in the right direction. That is what we can offer. And one thing that I continue to see among young people that are interested in anti-imperialism, interested in socialism, is I continue to see what I call the dual delusions. And on the one hand, they adopt an understanding that is so obscure and so unique. They're a follower of Enver Hoxha of Albania. They're a follower, they're a Maoist, Trotskyite. They've got an obscure, unique understanding of this stuff that is very, very dogmatic and very, very elaborate, but it gives them a t-shirt to wear, and it gives them a way of saying, I know it, and there's only 10 people in the world like me. They develop a worldview that is very, very narrow, and they are convinced that that is the way to understand things. And that they have this unique, special understanding of communism or socialism or religion or whatever that is so unique and special that no one gets it like they do. They have this unique worldview, and they don't, right? If you had some magic unique worldview, you'd be doing something with it. There are, these ideas divorced from any real organization, divorced from having real accomplishments, they don't mean anything. So if you're sitting there and saying, well, you understand it all and you have the unique understanding and you're just there by yourself, yeah, that's not the case. You shall know them by their fruits. You know, if your understanding is correct, it will pan out in real life. So that delusion of thinking that you have it all figured out, that's wrong. But then I see the very same people, the very, very same people who have this inflated sense of their own understanding, this obscurantist perspective. The very same people, if you ask them, what can we do? What can we do to intervene in the historical process? They'll say there's nothing we can do. They don't think that we can actually change the course of history. They don't think we can actually accomplish anything. And you think about that, and it's weird. It's like, on the one hand, they know it all. They've got this special, correct understanding, and everyone's wrong, and nobody understands it the way they do. And they and their 4 internet friends have the one true ideology. But with their one true ideology, all they can do is sit back and enjoy the show. There's nothing they can do. These delusions, they accompany each other, and I see them everywhere among young communists. And they're both wrong. They're both wrong. Because on the one hand, there is nobody in the United States that has the golden formula, that has the correct political line. No one's the Bolsheviks. No one's Lenin. If they were, they'd be doing something and getting to the masses and building a base among the population and building an anti-imperialist movement, and nobody's doing that. And on the other hand, if there was nothing, there's nothing we can do, then there's no point in any of this anyway. There are things we can do. You need to study the history of the unemployment councils that were built by the Communist Party during the 1930s. When Americans were hungry during the Great Depression, the Communist Party said, don't starve, fight. And it built mass organizations that went out and demanded jobs for the unemployed, demanded work or wages now. And they built very effective organizations that mobilized the working class that forced the government to create Social Security and unemployment insurance. They changed the course of history. Read about the anti-Vietnam War movement and how soldiers were defecting. Thousands and thousands of people were out in the streets protesting the Vietnam War. The U.S. Army was internally falling apart. Soldiers were defecting. They were shooting their officers. They were running away. The whole country was against the Vietnam War, the anti-Vietnam War movement. It started out, the whole country was super patriotic and was supporting the war in Vietnam. And by the early 70s, they changed the course of history, and the U.S. military was falling apart internally, and the Vietnamese people were victorious. The anti-Vietnam War movement played a very important, they changed something. There was an ugly war going on in Vietnam. The Vietnamese people were being slaughtered in order to keep their country poor, and there were hundreds of thousands of Americans who went out and burned their draft cards and got beaten up and got arrested. There were soldiers who refused to fight and went to the military stockades and prisons. There was a huge number of people who said, there is something I can do. And they changed the course of history. The civil rights movement is another great example. Right? Again, there was this awful situation, Jim Crow segregation. There were thousands of Americans who decided that they were going to end Jim Crow segregation. They were going to fight for the civil rights of African Americans. They were going to fight for their own rights if they were African American. They were going to stand in solidarity if they weren't. They changed the course of history. And right now, as imperialism is in its death throes, its desperate viciousness, trying to set up a low-wage police state, trying to march us toward World War III, trying to degrow us all, now is the time to build a movement, a real movement of people that challenge the power of the ultra monopolies. The capitalists are fighting amongst themselves, which is good. That creates an opening for the people. There's a rising anti-imperialist bloc, but there's not a movement in this country. And there's some silly woke nonsense that is an attempt to protect Joe Biden from Donald Trump. And that's not a movement, right? That's just people being mobilized to defend the establishment. But there's the potential to create a real movement in this country. A movement against imperialism, a movement to demand a government that fights for working families, a movement to demand jobs, healthcare, and education, a movement to say money for schools, money for roads and power plants and high-speed railway, not weapons for Israel and their crimes. There's potential to build a real movement now. People are hungry, they're angry, they're ready. It's time to build a movement. People can't stand that our government is loyal to Israel. Our government's loyal to Ukraine, and it's not loyal to our neighborhoods and our communities. It's not loyal to us. It's not loyal to working families. It's not loyal to the next generation. It's loyal to the profits of huge multinational corporations that are tied in with Israel, that are tied in with Ukraine and Burisma Holdings, that are tied in with chip manufacturing on the island of Taiwan, that are tied in with impoverishing Africa. The American people have a government that does not work for them, but instead works for imperialism. works to maintain this system of imperialism. And now is the time to fight imperialism. We must build a movement in America to fight imperialism. Not a woke movement to fight for the latest trendy liberal cause. I'm fighting against systemic racism. That's what my college professor told me to fight against. I feel, I want to save Darfur. We need to send troops to Darfur. No, a real movement to take responsibility for our communities and our neighborhoods and our families, to say, stop sending our future to Ukraine. Stop sending our future to Tel Aviv. Stop sending our future to Taiwan. Stop sending our future to South Korea. Stop sending our future and the destiny, the life that we deserve. Stop selling us down the river to prop up your evil international system. Stop impoverishing the world while you impoverish us, and let's trade with Russia. Let's trade with China. Let's trade with Iran. Let's take the oil that's under the ground and the natural gas that's under our ground. Let's use that natural wealth for the people. Let's hire the unemployed and underemployed young people to rebuild this country. Let's mobilize the reconstruction of the United States with a new works progress administration, a mass mobilization to industrialize this place. Let's take control of banking. Let's build a national bank. And let's take control of the credit strings and use the national bank to re-energize and reinvent the economy of this country. Let's enact an economic bill of rights. Let's invest in our population. Let's view every American as an asset, someone who can make the country wealthier and stronger. And because of that, we're going to invest in them. We're going to provide them education, not as a handout, but because we want an educated population, because they'll build. Let's provide Americans health care, not as a gift, but because if they're going to be prosperous, hardworking people who make our lives better, we need them to be healthy while they do it. Let's invest in our population. Let's invest in our country. Let's take control of the commanding heights of economic power. Let's put the natural resources of the country into the public sector. Let's put the oil and gas and coal and timber into public property. Let's put banking under public ownership, and let's use the purse strings strategically to rebuild the country. Let's hire the unemployed and put them to work with good wages building. Let's bring the military home from overseas and use all that manpower and all that money that's been invested. Let's use it to rebuild the life of America. And let's enter economic partnerships and joint ventures. Let's bring the China Railway to build a new high-speed railway system across America. Let's team up with Gazprom and Rosneft, two state-run energy companies in Russia, to build a huge state-run energy apparatus in the United States so that we can start getting wealthier from our natural resources, right? Let's bring some Cuban doctors to the United States to set up healthcare clinics for people who need access to medical care. Let's have a partnership between Americans who want to make good cell phones and Huawei Technologies. Start making phones that are way better than Apple and way less expensive than Apple, have way better service, right? We need a government of action to fight for working families. Let me repeat that. We need a government of action to fight for working families. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. Right now, we have a weak government. A government that just lets the ultra rich and the monopolies do whatever they want. We need a government of action to fight for working families. A government that kicks the ass of Jeff Bezos, and kicks the ass of Bill Gates, kicks the ass of Wall Street, and defends your neighborhood and your community. Let's have a democratic upsurge. Let's fight for workers' power. Let's fight for a new world. This is socialism. And I don't sound like your typical woke person. I'm not on the PSL YouTube channel talking about, oh my God, like Lenin was like against racism and stuff. Oh my God, that's like so cool. We're not on there, right? I mean, you look at these clowns who call themselves socialists, right? I'm a socialist because I think like Donald Trump is racist, and like we're not doing that, right? This is Gus Hall socialism. This is Huey Newton, Fred Hampton socialism. This is William Z. Foster socialism. This is some Eugene Debs socialism. This is some Elizabeth Gurley Flynn socialism here. All right. This isn't stop Trump socialism. This isn't woke socialism. This isn't, I hate America because it's like a racist country, so we deserve to be part. It's not woke socialism. This is patriotic socialism. This is socialism with American characteristics. This is socialism for the 21st century. This is the kind of socialist movement that'll save our country from imperialism. This is socialism that doesn't hate the American people, that is fighting for the American people. That's what it is. And that's what I felt like saying to you all. Sometimes you just have to go over the basics. Sometimes you just have to explain the facts. Sometimes you have to just lay it all out there. Sometimes you just have to say what's on your mind. You don't have a news hook. You just say what's on your mind. You say what must be said. If you don't know something to be true, don't say it. But if you do know something is true, don't be afraid to scream it from the heavens. So on that note, folks, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Let's do the roll call. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? All right. I see Auckland, New Zealand, Kiwi Corner. I see Ruhala and Hussein in Germany. I see Mads from Massachusetts. Welcome, welcome. I see Nate in Chicago, Ed in Louisville. I see Alex Rickel in Oregon, David Muller in Columbia, Illinois. I see St. David's, Bermuda. I see Ichabod in New York, Bob Troy in New York, Rice from Adelaide, Australia, Mara in St. Paul. I see Dustin Schlesinger in Ohio. I see Blake from Alabama. I see Anthony in Detroit, John McCarthy in Chicago, Chad in Spokane, Washington, Dee in Tennessee, Mariah in North Carolina. Let's go. Jason, Kristen in Queens, Amira in Clearwater, MCIA from Las Vegas, Kay in New Orleans. Hold on. Right. I see John in Switzerland, Gleb in Long Beach, California, Balthazar in Oakland, Master Jack in South Africa, Shanti in Mexico, Seasoned Noob in China, Jenny Lynn in Cincinnati, 120 million in California, Mosin in Denver, Colorado, Chris and April in Salt Lake City. Good to have you all with us. All right. Caden in Southern West Virginia, Alex in Brazil. Very, very good. Names and locations. Names and locations. Anybody? John in Switzerland. Very, very good. Very, very good. Just looking on the Rockfin. Alex in Brazil. Mohican, California. Very, very good. Very, very good. So, a couple things. First of all, I usually have been plugging our Vermont retreat in the opening of these streams. I didn't do that tonight because tonight we have something very, very special. Shout out to the members of the CPI community who did this. They did a great job. I must say so myself. We are having a national educational workshop April 26th through 29th in Vermont. Chris from West Virginia, Sultan from Massagoa, Nabi from Pakistan, welcome. Alex in Brazil. So we're having a national educational workshop in Vermont. And if you want to sign up, the link is down below in the description, or I'm putting it in the chat here. I'm putting it in the chat. We'd love to have you join us. We've got, at this point, about 35 people registered. We still have room for a few more. A lot of people are flying to New York City. We have transportation from New York. It's way cheaper to fly to New York than other cities, but it's in Vermont. So if you're in New England or you want to go to Vermont or whatever, but shout out to the CPI members. I don't know if they want me to say their names or not, so I'll hold off doing that. But they made this lovely video of the invitation to our gathering. So here we go.
The movement to the masses. April 26th to 29th, Vermont. Center for Political Innovation National Educational Workshop. Friends and allies, as U.S. society braces for an election year amid international turmoil and a decaying economy, many are looking, not just for answers, but for what they can do to change the course of history. How can we get involved? How can we make things better? The synthetic left offers nothing but cancel culture, pessimism, and anti-human sentiments. Often, this channels dissidents toward the right wing, which is wrapped up in the worship of markets and profits and has no real understanding of the global imperialist system and why it must be opposed, or the history of struggles for justice. With our unique message of optimistic, constructive, patriotic socialism and anti-imperialism, the Center for Political Innovation and the City Building Tendency stand alone in offering an orientation that points toward a brighter future for America's working families and the people of the world. The City Building Tendency is a fresh outlook rooted in an understanding of Marxism-Leninism and the global anti-imperialist movement, and draws from many wells, including Christianity, American history, and so much more. While the Center for Political Innovation has blossomed around a unique pro-humanity, pro-growth message, we aim to take this message further, lower and deeper to the real masses, so that the American working class may be awakened and brought to life by standing arm in arm with others in the struggle for justice. If you are a member of the Center for Political Innovation, a longtime friend or ally, or someone new who is exploring these ideas and concepts, we invite you to join us this spring. The Center for Political Innovation will host a 4-day national educational workshop at a beautiful facility in Vermont. The event will not only include political classes, but also group bonding activities, a talent show, music, arts and crafts, and other relaxing and stress-free activities. Attendees will get to know each other, share their experiences, and develop real bonds of comradeship. Many have been inspired by the book We Are City Builders, the Center for Political Innovation Educational Manual. This book has been utilized to lead discussion groups and has also laid the foundation for the series of classes known as the Saxton Lectures, which CPI members around the country have been trained to give as a way of teaching the basics of anti-imperialism, socialism, and the city building tendency. We are excited to announce that at the upcoming retreat, a completely new textbook, a second volume intended to complement the educational manual, will be available and presented to all attendees when they check in. This new textbook will focus on the history of socialist and anti-imperialist organizing in America, the divisions in the ruling class, and give perspective toward building a base of support for our message among the broader population. If you attend, you will be the first to sit through and participate in the discussions during the inauguration of a second level of model classes, much like the Saxton Lectures, that members will replicate in the process of building the organization. It will be very exciting to learn and engage together with all of this completely new material. We want to maximize attendance and not turn anyone away who is interested in the message. But from those who are able, we do request a $200 donation if possible to cover the food and other expenses for the 4 days of activities. For those who register, expect a follow-up call with CPI leadership to confirm your attendance and answer any questions you may have. You may also leave questions, additional details, or comments in the registration form. Please consider bringing a friend, family member, coworker, or classmate who may be completely new to these ideas. We envision this workshop as being part of the process of CPI becoming better aligned with our organizational vision to the masses. Subsequently, new attendees and guests of friends and members are encouraged and welcomed and will be given priority throughout the 4 days of activities and classes. We look forward to seeing you in Vermont. Best wishes, the Center for Political Innovation.
Yep, that was a great video. Thank you to the comrades who made it. It's going to be a great event. So if you are able to join us, please register. And we will get back to you. The list of attendees just keeps growing. I'm very, very excited about it. Every day I hear about new people going. It's going to be really, really great. It's going to be awesome. So I hope to see you there. It's going to be great. And that's going to be good. So we have some super chats here. A lot of them are just contributions, and we do appreciate that. I do want to throw out there that the way I do support my ability to live in New York City with this extra room, that's rather expensive. I live in an apartment here in New York. I have to live here for my job, and the rent is too damn high, as they say. In order to do that, I do, need to pay my bills and such. And that, if you send a super chat, you're not just giving me something to talk about, but you're also, helping me cover the expenses. And I do appreciate the people that were moved by my words tonight and sent a contribution. And I'm going to answer people's super chat questions. I am going to react to another video tonight, but I'm going to answer a couple super chat questions before I do that. But any further questions you got, Rumble rants, Rockfin tips, super chats, keep them rolling in because that gives me something to respond to. So first things first, thoughts or observations on Lavrov in China? Well, at this point, the Russia-China relationship is very, very solid. China, they do things a little bit differently than Russia. They speak a little bit differently. But I noticed that at the UN today, that Algeria and China both made a point of calling for negotiations in Ukraine and de-escalating international tensions. I saw that. And I also have seen that the Chinese, foreign ministry spokeswoman, she continues to just lay it out like it is when explaining their position and explaining how the United States is responsible for the war in Ukraine. I continue to hear good things from the Russian foreign minister, and the Russia-China relationship is very, very solid. I hear what's going on, and I see that the future, the Russia-China alliance it's not an ideological one, right? During the Cold War, it was that China was deeply poor and it was getting aid from the Soviet Union because they were both communist countries. And then there was a divide, but things have changed. Now China is the second largest economy in the world, a huge manufacturer. Russia is now an energy giant, and their relationship is about economics. It's about trade. It's about the fact that China needs lots of oil and gas, and Russia needs to sell their oil and gas. And the more sanctions the USA puts on both countries, the more they trade with each other. And so, the idea of pulling them apart, and that seems to be a common theme. There are people on the right who have it in their minds they're going to turn Russia against China. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So there you go. Yeah. And thank you. The super chats are always appreciated. So that was John McCarthy, and I do appreciate, the super chat here. Now, Gleb asked me, what flag should a socialist USA use? Well, here's the thing, right? First of all, we use the regular American flag right now in our protests and demonstrations, right? Because that's the flag that Americans identify with. And we want to communicate that socialism will make the United States better, that these wars are bad for America, and that if we want to be effective in communicating our message, we have to communicate to the bulk of the American people that we are on their side. Now obviously to black nationalists and such, there's an opposition to the US flag that makes sense, but the idea that using a regular American flag is bad, which is the way many in the left in the United States feel, that the American flag is a racist symbol, blah 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 blah. That's just virtue signaling. It's childish and it's juvenile. The American flag is the flag of the country. Now, in the process of socialism, I think the flag will probably change, but I don't have a new flag designed for the socialist United States because this is an important thing. I critiqued a couple nights ago, I critiqued Sunsara Taylor of the Revolutionary Communist Party and how she has got, Bob Avakian has the whole constitution for the United States already drawn up. Socialism is not going to be made by Bob Avakian. It's going to be made by the broad masses of people. And any constitution for the socialist America is going to be written by the American people in their millions in the course of struggle, right? And that goes for the flag, and that goes for the particular model that socialism will take. These are things that are written in struggle. And that the idea that we're just going to come up with the perfect blueprint and then somehow maneuver into power and impose it from above, that's not Marxism. That's Blanquism, right? Marxism says that history is made by class struggle. And so the flag of the socialist United States, the Constitution, the nature of the particular socialist economy, that is going to be determined in struggle by the people in the course of struggle. Now, we put forward a program, a 4-point economic program, because these are things that could be carried out under this system that create a confrontation between the bulk of the population that would benefit from these things and the ultra monopolies, right? And that, that if you were to achieve these 4 things, in theory, you could not have socialism, but you would push back so much capitalist power, socialism wouldn't be too far away. So we put forward an immediate program, right? A program of struggle, a program of confrontation, a transitional program, while realizing that the ultimate vision of what America will be like under socialism, and we have some understanding. Obviously, unemployment wouldn't exist, because why would you want to have anyone be unemployed? That's labor power that could be building a strong economy. Obviously, we'd be investing in technology. Obviously, we'd be friends with countries around the world. But in the particulars of what flag we would use, or and that this is a trap. When I debated Destiny Stephen Bonnell, he really wanted to get me into a place where I would start laying out, explain exactly how many French fries you would get when you order a hamburger at a restaurant in socialist America. And this is something our enemies like. And that this is, again, they don't know anything about Marxism, right? One thing that we have going for us is that our enemies are very ignorant. They know nothing about what we believe. They think we want everyone to get paid the same. They think socialism is taxation. They don't know what we believe. And because our enemies don't know what we believe, they say stupid things. And our enemies believe we are utopians. They think that we've drawn up, we have in our heads this blueprint of the ideal world, and we're mad that it's not fair. Some people have more money than others, and that's no fair. And we've drawn up this blueprint and we want to impose it onto the world, but we don't, right? We have a scientific understanding that the working class will lead a coalition against the imperialists, right, to defeat the imperialists. And that's what we seek to advance. We seek to advance the forces of anti-imperialism globally. We have that scientific understanding, and we understand that in the process of defeating the imperialists, there will be so many different forces involved and all of that it will be in that struggle that the new American flag, the new American national, these things will be written, right? And I'm all for people dreaming. I'm all for people saying how it might be, but at the same time, I urge people to understand that we are scientific about this, and that we don't think it's just going to come from natural, You know, and that's important. So that's why I don't get into particular minutia. So there you go, Gleb. I wish I had an answer to satisfy you. What I'm trying to tell you is that if you see this in a scientific way, you're going to understand that we cannot write such a thing. We cannot design such a thing, right, at this time, because the movement that's going to be built will lay this out, right? And that's what separates us from utopians, is that we are trying to mobilize millions of people so that they can, you know, lay the basis for the movement that will design these things. An international coalition of activists is organizing a new freedom flotilla to deliver aid to Gaza. Good for them. Good for them. I mean, that is exactly what we need. And, you know, what Israel is doing, right, is absolutely abominable, right? And that we need to just, it's time that the Marxist movement discuss this in a way where, look, Israel was created by British imperialism and American imperialism to serve their interests. Absolutely. And, you know, however, you know, it bases itself, you know, it bases itself on, you know, an ideology called Zionism. And Zionism is a continuation of what Lenin called the spirit of the ghetto, right? Which is a notion that the Jews are separate from everybody else. They're somehow magical and they must be separate from everybody else. And that, you know, that Marx himself, who was Jewish by ethnicity, and Lenin, who was he was like half Jewish, a quarter Jewish by ethnicity, both of them vehemently rejected Zionism, but not just the Zionist movement, which eventually developed, right? There was a movement for the creation of a Jewish state, but also the spirit of the ghetto, right? You know, if you read Marx's essay on the Jewish question, what he's saying is that this idea that there's this group of people that are just so special and so magical and they can never integrate with the rest of society, and they're just so, he says, that's reactionary. We want nothing to do with that. We don't celebrate that. Marx wanted nothing to do with that. And Lenin said the same thing. And if you read his essay on Bundism, he says the same thing, right? There was a group of Marxists in Russia that were saying, well, we Jews, we have to have a separate communist party. We have to have a separate communist party because we are so special and so different. And Lenin said, no, this is reactionary, right? This is the spirit of the ghetto. This is reactionary. This is not helpful in any conceivable way. And this is the mindset that leads to Zionism. That's what Lenin says in his Bundism. And we're against that, right? That we don't hate Jewish people, obviously, right? We don't hate anyone on the basis of their race or their religion. But there is a current. Zionism is rooted in a mindset that developed in feudalism that says that there's this group of people that are magical and special and can't integrate with the rest of society. We reject that because we don't believe in the supremacy of any race, right? We believe in equality. And so we reject anti-Semitism, which would be the stigmatization, demonization of Jews, the idea that there's nothing wrong with capitalism. It's all just a big conspiracy by the Jews. But we reject that, of course. But we must reject Zionism, the spirit of the ghetto, and this mindset that both Marx and Lenin themselves denounced. And we must understand, right, that Trotskyism and neoconservatism are both largely rooted in this mindset, right? That Trotskyism and neoconservatism are anti-populist, right? Marx, he says in the Communist Manifesto, right? He says, all other historical movements have been a movement of minorities in the interest of minorities. But the proletarian movement, the socialist movement, is a movement of the immense majority on behalf of the immense majority, right? The whole working class, which includes Jews, which includes, you know, Black people, Asian people, Arab people. It's the immense majority. However, right, the spirit of the ghetto is a mindset that says, well, we don't want to fight for the immense majority because the immense majority are our enemy, right? We're at odds with everybody else. So instead of building a mass populist movement for the immense majority, we're going to pick some minority in society and demonize society for oppressing that minority, right? and that the spirit of the ghetto, right? This mindset of Bundism, the mindset that eventually gave birth to Zionism, the mindset of Trotskyism, the mindset of neoconservatism, right? This, in a lot of ways, is rooted in this mindset, in this separatist mindset, that the masses are the enemy, the bulk of the population are the enemy, and that we maybe we want chaos, we want instability as a way of like holding back, but it's an oppositional mindset. It views the bulk of the population as the enemy, right? And we have to oppose that. We have to oppose that mindset. And that the reason communism in America is so weak and isolated is because it is dominated by the mindset of the ghetto, right? And look, and most of the people that talk this way and act this way are not Jewish, okay? So it's not because they're Jews. That's not what I'm saying, right? BreadTube is a great example of this, right? BreadTube. Vosh, I guess I thought someone told me Vosh was ethnically Jewish. Apparently he's Polish. Okay, right? ContraPoints. She's Episcopalian. She's from a wealthy family in Northern Virginia, right? I mean, they're not Jews, but everyone's an anti-Semite. Populism is fascism, right? If the masses of people are ever getting together and fighting for their rights, that's the same as Hitler, right? You can't talk about bankers because that's code for Jew. Everyone's a Nazi, and it's all about finding some very obscure minority, the ultra trans Puerto Rican, it's not about fighting for the immense majority, because the immense majority are the enemy. No, I can't fight for them. We've got to fight for some obscure minority and celebrate them, right? That's the party of socialism and liberation, right? They hate the majority of the American people. They hate the American flag. They hate Christianity. They hate the bulk of the American people. They're fighting for, Puerto Rican transgender queers with a background in speaking Arabic. They're fighting for some obscure minority against the immense majority, because the immense majority are fascists, right? That's what PSL thinks. That's what the woke people think. They think if they would look at an unemployed demonstration from the 1930s where you got thousands of unemployed workers demanding worker wages now, and they'd say that's a Nazi rally, right? I don't see anything about transgender rights here. I don't see anything about about fighting white supremacy. I don't see anything about how right? That's the mindset. The left has become infected with the same mindset that is behind neoconservatism, with the same mindset that is behind Trotskyism, the same mindset that is behind Zionism, right? And it is opposition to the majority of people. We are against racism because racism is a barrier to the immense majority defeating imperialism. That's why we're against racism. We're not against racism to prove that we're good people and to virtue signal that the majority of people are bad. No, we're against racism because racism and special oppression of Black people holds back all working people. We're against colonialism and imperialism because it's a barrier to defeating the global imperialist system. We are against, oppression of women. We're against forms of oppression because they hold back the global majority, the immense majority in this country, the immense majority in the world, from defeating imperialism. That's why we're against it. But the mindset of the ghetto says, well, no, we're against the immense majority. And we're constantly trying to find some minority that we can be the champions of, so that we can virtue signal and show everyone how bad the majority is, because the majority are inferior, the majority are dangerous, the majority are evil, right? And it's not conscious, it's subconscious, but it's a mindset. And leftist politics in the West in particular is dominated by this mindset. And if you look at the debate between Stalin and Trotsky, the real question was that Stalin was for the immense majority of the peoples living in the Soviet Union, and Trotsky hated the people living in the Soviet Union. He hated the peasantry, and he just wanted permanent revolution and global chaos because he didn't like the people. He wanted to destabilize and overthrow Europe because, he didn't like it, right? He wanted chaos, he wanted instability, and he was anti-populist at his root. And that's why many Trotskyites became neoconservatives, right? And that's why Marx, who's writing about how he's building a movement on the immense majority, he writes that essay on the Jewish question, which uses a lot of very colorful language that we would never use to say things that are a bit over the top. But what he's saying is, look, there is this mindset that there's this group of people that is magic, that is different from everybody else, and I want nothing to do with it. And I don't think that's anti-Semitism, right? I don't think that, that would be like, I mean, that's not anti-Semitism, right? Because, I mean, and Lenin, when he writes his essay on the Bund, he's not saying there's anything wrong with Jews. There's many Jews among the Bolsheviks, but he's saying the idea that we're going to build a movement where Jews are separate from everybody else because they're just so special and magical and everybody else is their enemy, right? Yes, Bolshevik literally meant majority, right? And that, we've had some discussions about this in CPI leadership because it's a concern, because the problem with most of the left is the left just says, well, Israel's a tool of US imperialism. It is. But Israel has its own power. Israel has its own power, right? And it's not that simple, number one, right? And there is a belief, even in leftist circles, that populism is inherently fascist and Nazi, right? And there is a weird continuity between Zionism and Trotskyism and neoconservatism. And all of it is the mindset of the ghetto. And many of the people that stood against it were Jews, like Moishe Olgin, who wrote a great book called Trotskyism, Counter-Revolution in Disguise, like Lenin, like Marx, but there's something there, right? And we should call out what that is, that Zionism didn't just come out of nowhere. Trotskyism didn't just come out of nowhere, right? Neoconservatism didn't just come out of nowhere. And that this is a problem, right? This is a problem. And, and we should admit that, right? And we can admit that and move on from it. And Marx admitted it, and Lenin admitted it, and the Bolsheviks saved millions of Jewish people from anti-Semitic pogroms. Like, it's admitting this gives you power over it. But if you don't acknowledge that these things exist, right? And you play the game, you play the Zionist game where everyone's an anti-Semite. Oh, anti-Semite. You go along with that. You play the game of, oh, well, Caleb, I was watching your podcast about how capitalism causes unemployment. I didn't hear you say the word transgender one time. Oh, you must be a racist. Oh, Caleb, I was listening to your podcast and you didn't talk about the systemic white supremacy against transgender Puerto Ricans. You must, you just have to say no to that. We're populists. We're fighting for the immense majority, and we're against racism and special oppression and colonialism because it holds back the immense majority. But if you have the mindset that the immense majority is the enemy, you're on the wrong side. That's what the imperialists think. That's why they're trying to push degrowth. That's why they're trying to grind this country into poverty. And there's nuance to these things, right? I wish that everything was simple. I wish I could just make broad sweeping statements and answer everyone's question. You can't do that, right? You can't do that. But I want to show you a video. I'm going to show a video now before we there's plenty more super chats and I do appreciate them and I'm going to answer them all. I'm going to show this video because this is Carrie Lake. I follow Carrie Lake because I like her work. She's a Trump supporter, right? But I follow Carrie Lake. And we all know that the Arizona courts just upheld an anti-abortion law from the 1800s that's, very strict. And this is the video that Carrie Lake, who's in Arizona, made opposing this law, right? Carrie Lake opposed the law, right? She opposed the law. If I can find the right video here. She made this video opposing the anti-abortion law. And explaining what her position is. And this video is very telling because it tells you the difference at this point between the two factions in the ruling class. Carrie Lake is pro-Israel. She supports Julian Assange. I appreciate that. But Carrie Lake is bad politically in a lot of ways. But I'm trying to get you to understand the divisions in the ruling class. Watch this video.
Total ban on abortion that the Arizona Supreme Court just ruled on is out of line with where the people of this state are. The issue is less about banning abortion and more about saving babies. I agree with President Trump. This is such a personal and private issue. I chose life, but I'm not every woman. I want to make sure that every woman who finds herself pregnant has more choices so that she can make that choice that I made.
Yeah, and see, like, so, like, this is basically the Clinton position on abortion, legal and rare. We should try to create a situation where women don't want to have abortions, but it should be legal. That's the Republican position. I do not know what planet these people are on when they say, "Oh my God, if Trump wins, they're gonna outlaw all abortions and publicly behead all women." I mean, it's like this is like ridiculous, right? Oh, they're gonna round up all the trans people and kill. Like, this is delusional. This is Carrie Lake, a hard MAGA Republican, agreeing with Donald Trump and denouncing the very same law that all the Democrats are up in arms about. She's against it also, right? This is the main MAGA Republican in the state that has the law, and she's against it also. So all this hysteria about Donald Trump and abortion and, oh my God, we got to vote for the Democrats, it's all bullshit, right? If the main MAGA Republican in the state of the law is saying this. But this video is more important in many other ways, so keep watching.
I'll never forget the first time I got pregnant, taking that pregnancy test, looking down, and I was excited, but I'll be honest, I was afraid as well. I was nervous. I was anxious. It's natural for women to be nervous and anxious when they're pregnant. I never would ever assume that any woman had the same exact feelings I had or situation I had. We know that some women are economically in a horrible situation. They might be in an abusive relationship. They might be the victim of rape. I agree with President Trump. We must have exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of a mother. We as American people don't agree on everything all of the time. But if you look at where the population is on this, a full ban on abortion is not where the people are. The issue is less about banning abortion and more about saving babies. And we can do that. We are only as strong as our greatest institution, which is the family. You know, I had a real eye-opening experience this last summer. I had the opportunity to visit Hungary, and it completely changed my view of how we should deal with this complicated, difficult issue. In Hungary, what they did I thought was so amazing. They started with their tax rate, and when you get married, they give you a cut in your tax rate. When you have your first child, they give you another cut. By the time a mother has 4 children, she never pays taxes again. That's called a baby bonus. I think we should do that here in America.
Bing, 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 bing. That's the difference. Joe Biden thinks there should be less Americans. Donald Trump thinks there should be more Americans. So much so that Carrie Lake is calling for the government basically to pay you to have children. That is a big difference. A very, very big difference in approach. Right? That's the difference. Right? She represents the lower levels of capital that want there to be more people out there to buy their products, that there be more people out there to hire. Joe Biden represents the financiers who want to save capitalism with a forced degrowth Malthusian agenda. That's the difference. The lower levels of capital just want to make lots of money, and more people means more money, more productive economy. The upper levels of capital want a systemic plan of degrowth, and so they want to reduce the population at all costs. That's the difference.
Bail out banks and multinational corporations all the time. When's the last time we've given an assist to a struggling mother in a family? So many young people are saying, I don't ever think I could become a mother or father because, heck, I can't even afford to get by on my own. How would I ever become a parent? They see the economy faltering. They see crime rising. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, and it's still not enough to get by. We need to make sure that our economic policies are growing our economy and making our young people prosperous as well. So
she's calling for the government to aid working families so that more people will make the choice to have children. And I'm seeing this. This was in the speech that we saw from the Congresswoman, the rebuttal to the State of the Union. This is a recurring theme. Republicans are the section of the ruling class that wants to increase the population. And Democrats are the section of the ruling class that wants to drive down the population. I mean, you know, and it's like, why do they make us pick? Donald Trump says so many awful things. Donald Trump, you know, was an awful president in many ways, but it's like, okay, so we got one president who wants to kill us, and we got one president who wants there to be more of us. I mean, why does it have to be like this? But that's the world we live in, right? And you'll also notice, though, that she's now saying that she wants aid. Right? It used to be Republicans were the ones like, oh, we got to get rid of welfare. These welfare mothers, they have more kids to make more money. Oh, and David Duke, the white supremacist, one of his big laws was that he wanted, welfare mothers to get sterilized in order to get their benefits. And it used to be the Republicans' talking point was we don't want to give aid to low-income mothers, because the poor people have too many kids. They were Malthusians, right? David Duke and Rush Limbaugh. Oh, we give them more money, they have more kids. That used to be the standard Republican talking point, was we don't want to aid low-income mothers. Now the Republicans are saying they want to aid low-income mothers because we need more people. And the Democrats are saying, no, we need abortions. We need to just, drive down the population to save Mother Earth. This is very interesting. The logic of the Republicans, right, is going to lead, if it continues in this direction, they're going to need there to be more state control over the means of production. They're going to have to get to the conclusion that we can't just have hands off. The standard libertarian, we just need hands off. That's not working, right?
Live that American dream. And the American dream means being able to afford to have a family and watch those beautiful children grow. Ask any mother, no matter what she's accomplished in life, and she will say, my greatest accomplishment, my greatest achievement is being a mother. Ruby came out. She was born on a Sunday morning at 6:39 a.m. And I'll never forget that moment of watching my baby come out and holding her for the first time. Ruby was just 10 months old when I found out I was pregnant with Leo. She quickly warmed up to Leo, and they've become just the best of friends, and it's just been such a joy to watch them grow up. I want more women to have that joy and that achievement. I want to write legislation, vote for policies that will help make that a reality. That is what makes our country great.
See, this is so the opposite. I remember when Republicans used to say there's no such thing as poverty. They did a study that poor people are more obese than wealthy people. So that proves all the poor people are eating lots of food and they're not poor. Oh, there's poverty is invented by the liberals. They used to say there was no poverty. There was no such thing as poverty in America. And all the poor people were just lazy. Now they're sitting here saying we need the government, the state, to take action to encourage American families to have more children. That is the Republican line. Do you know who also did that? Stalin. Stalin, look up Mother of the Soviet Union. Stalin gave a special medal to women that had more than 10 children. Did you know that? It's called Mother of the Soviet Union. Basically, we've got the Republican Party taking the policies of Stalin, right? This is, I'm telling you, there's one section of the ruling class that, despite all their insanity and their libertarian delusions, is the pro-growth section. And there's another section of the ruling class that is sinister, evil, Malthusian imperialists.
Honored to call President Trump friend. I'm so honored to have his endorsement, and I 100% agree with him as a mother and as a woman. He did so much to help save babies and protect women, bringing down the unconstitutional Roe v. Wade, which people on both sides of the issue admitted was unconstitutional, and allowing we the people to decide this issue. Right now, we're in that part where we're deciding the issue. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, there are emotions that are so strong, and people are angry, and people are sad, and they're furious. This is the difficult part. I didn't get into politics because I thought it was going to be easy. I'm okay with the difficult parts, and right now we're in that part where we need to work through this issue. And thankfully, as we're working through this issue, it's not just going to be the abortion extremists calling the shots. People who are pro-life have the ability at this moment, thanks to President Trump, to be involved in this process, to come up with policies that will work to help women and save babies. We knew that when this issue was sent back to the states, there would be debate, there would be argument, there would be teeth gnashing, but we're going to get through this. We are Americans. Heck, we're Arizonans. We're some of the toughest people out there. We're going to work through this, and on the other side, we're going to come out much better for it. They want this issue to bring down our country. They want Americans at each other's throats. And this issue has the ability to bring down our country or help save our country. And I want to help save our country. As your senator, I will oppose federal funding for abortion and federal banning of abortion. I'm not going to Washington, D.C. to impose federal restrictions on something that's already been sent back to the states. I'm going to Washington, D.C. to secure our borders, strengthen our families, and help President Trump make America great again.
I mean, she's bad in a lot of ways, but I'd rather have people in office that want there to be more people in the country than people in office who are actively trying to depopulate the country. I mean, maybe I'm old fashioned. Money is boring. Have some petrodollars. Why are they petrodollars? I mean, I don't, do you own an oil? I mean, Underhill, do you own an oil field or something? Like, what makes your $10 super chat a petrodollar? I don't know, but I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. And thank you, Ruhala. And thank you, Christopher Walford. And thank you, Nathaniel Wasserman. Appreciated. The family farmers have organized in the past and supported each other to fight foreclosures. The Farmer Labor Party came about during the Great Depression, if I remember correctly. It was a little bit earlier, actually. The Farmer Labor Party preceded the Great Depression. It was in the teens and 20s. The Communist Party tried to push the Farmer Labor Party to become a national party in the 1920s. It wasn't successful, but the Farmer Labor Party, that was Robert La Follette, who was kind of a populist. You had La Follette, the La Follette movement, the progressives. You had and then eventually you got the Farmer Labor Party, and you got they eventually tried to form a national Farmer Labor Party. The Communist Party did, but it was not successful. And there was, but the Farmer Labor Party, like the height of its influence, I think, was before World War I. It was farm populism, right? And it was in Minnesota. I think in Minnesota, the Democratic Party, is it Minnesota or Wisconsin? It's still called the Democratic Farmer Labor Party of the state. It's like a merger of the two. And if I remember correctly, I believe Minnesota had a Farmer Labor Party governor at one point. For a long time in the 60s, Minneapolis had a mayor from the Socialist Party. For a very long time, they had the Socialist Party ran Minneapolis, the SPUSA. I think the mayor supported the Vietnam War, but he was technically in the Socialist Party. There is a history of like Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota it's the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. There is a history of that. So there you go. I mean, right. In fact, there's one of those communist songs I like. I don't want your millions, mister. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but there's a verse about the Farmer Labor Party. Maybe I can find, I don't want your millions, mister. Maybe I can find a version of that I can play. I don't want your millions, mister. Can't play Pete Seeger on here. They'll slap my stream with, but there's got to be somebody singing it who I can put on. I don't want your millions, mister. Right? I don't want your millions, mister. Right? Okay, this is interesting. This is a man playing it with an orchestra. I don't know how. This is interesting. So let's try this one. I'll try to put on the Farmer Labor Party, Communist Party song from the 1920s. I don't want your millions, mister. Right? Right. Let's see. This is someone playing it with an orchestra behind them, which I don't even know how that works, but there we go. All righty. I don't want your millions, mister. There's a verse about the Farmer Labor Party. So let's see if this is a decent version of this classic communist folk song. I don't want your millions, mister.
I don't want diamond ring. All I want is the right to live, mister. Give me back my job again. I don't want your Rolls Royce, mister. I don't want your pleasure yacht. All I want is food for my babies. Give to me my old job back. I don't want your millions. I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's the right to live. All I want is the right to live, mister. Give me back my job. Give me back my job again. I know you have the land deed, mister. The money is all in your name. But where's the work that you did, mister? I'm demanding back my job again. I don't want your millions. I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's the right to live. All I want is the right to live, mister. Give me back my job. Give me back my job again. Think me dumb if you wish, mister. Call me green or blue or red. This one thing I sure know, mister. My hungry baby must be fed. But I don't want your millions, mister. No, I don't want your diamond ring. All I want is the right to live, mister. Give me back my job again. And I don't want millions, mister. No, I don't want your diamond ring. All I want is the right to live, mister. Give me back my job again. Give me back my job
Well, that was a great rendition, except they left out the verse I was going for, right? There's a verse in the song, the way it's generally performed. He says, "Take your two big parties, mister. No difference in them I can see. But with the Farmer Labor Party, we will set the people free." That's generally how the song goes. I know that that guy from Australia, he'll probably do that verse because I think he's like a socialist or something. So we'll put on the guy from Australia one more time, folks. Jim Garland.
Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again. I don't want your Rolls Royce, mister. I don't want your pleasure yacht. All I want is food for my babies. Now give to me my old job back. We worked to build this country, mister, while you enjoyed a life of ease. You've stolen all that we built, mister. Now our children starve and freeze. Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again. Yes, you have a land deed, mister. The money is all in your name. But where's the work that you did, mister? I'm demanding back my job again. Think me dumb if you wish, mister. Call me green or blue or red. There's just one thing that I know, mister. Our hungry babies must be fed. Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again. We'll organize together, mister, in one big united band, and with a farmer Labour Party, we will win our just demands. Take the two old parties, mister. No difference in them I can see, but with a farmer Labour Party, we will set the workers free. Well, I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want's just live and let live. Give me back my job again.
Well, there you go. So yeah, that was I don't want your millions, mister. I played it because it had the line about the farmer labor party in it. And I guess there's two verses. I generally heard the one about take the two big parties, but there you go. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Crooklyn. I do appreciate the super chat, and visited Mecca, Saudi for Agenda 2030. What is this? Well, I would assume that is the plans that the Crown Prince is making for Saudi Arabia. The current Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia has kind of defined himself because Saudi Arabia is a bit lost. Hydraulic fracking has got the world a lot less dependent on them. The oil price drop of 2014 caused them some problems. And the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, has been kind of defining himself with different, like, Bonapartist schemes about all kinds of different things. because they're realizing that Saudi Arabia has to change its economy, right? Right now, they have an economy based on oil and sand and weapons, right? Lots of weapons. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And so the Crown Prince has been experimenting with different Bonapartist ideas about he's going to build this or build that. He's studying Singapore. He's studying different countries. And, Saudi Arabia, there's a huge amount of state control of the economy. It's not a socialist economy because it's run for profit, the profit of the royal family. But there's a huge amount of state ownership, right? I mean, the Bin Laden family have a state monopoly on construction, generally, if you're a Saudi citizen and you're not Shia, they give you a very big like oil payment, basically. Vision 2030. Yeah, the Saudis are trying to figure out how to reinvent their economy, right? Saudi Arabia is wild. For example, one thing in Saudi Arabia is that your social status in Saudi Arabia is your license plate. The king, his license plate is number 1. And in Saudi Arabia, the lower your license plate number is, the higher your social status is. So, Saudis will bid millions and millions of dollars just to get a lower license plate, because people judge you by your license plate, right? So if a guy's license plate says 50 or 90 or something like that, he's a really high up person. And that they spend lots of money, millions of dollars the Saudis spend, trying to have a license plate that indicates their social status, right? That's, the upper layers of Saudi Arabia. Many Muslims look at how they live, how the Saudi elite, the king's inner circle, and those people live. And it is one of the most decadent and wasteful lifestyles that anyone could imagine. Right. I mean, they live in absolute luxury, while the people of Yemen starve, while the Saudi oil workers, the Shia oil workers live in poverty, while there's, people all throughout the region in poverty, and they've got oil money to pass around, and they've got weapons to purchase from the United States. And the Saudi elite, the Saudi inner circle, they live in absolute poverty. And don't get on their bad side or they'll cut your head off. And they literally do cut people's heads off. They're one of the only countries in the world that still beheads people. Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia, again, Joe Biden wanted them to go all in against Russia. And they wouldn't do it. So, Saudi Arabia is changing, right? Their relationship with the West is changing. Their economy has to change. They can't keep living the way they're living now forever. So there's some talk that, they want to figure out what to do. And they've been talking about this for a while. I mean, the Saudis have known for quite some time they cannot continue with the way their economy currently operates. So there you go. And thank you, Ruhullah. The woke left hates farmers. Yeah, right. I mean, it's wild, right? But the farmer revolts. I mean, it's just common sense, right? They want to produce more food, and the governments and BlackRock are trying to stop them from doing it. So we support the farmers. I mean, I support the farmers of Europe. I support the farmers of Norway and Germany and all these places that are standing up against the degrowth policies that Biden's pushing. The idea that we should have less food in the world, not good, right? Russia supports farmers. Russia's having a farming boom, right? Russian agriculture is exploding right now. That's one of the great achievements of Putin. He's rebuilt the farming sector of Russia amazingly. So yeah, I mean, it's wild. It's wild. Wild times. All right, everybody. I'm going to put on the closing music. Tomorrow morning, early, I'm doing a stream with a guy in China. And it's going to be on this channel too. It's called like Jerry's Take on China or something. It's a pro-Chinese YouTube channel. He wants to talk to me about MAGA communism. So if you're up early in the morning, like around 9:30, I'm going to be on this channel, and then I'm going to cover the UN meeting after that for RT. So before I cover the UN meeting for RT, I'm going to be on this YouTube channel and on his channel, Jerry's Take on China. We're going to talk MAGA communism for an hour or so. So it's going to be interesting. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to put on the closing music. Tune in tomorrow morning. I guess tomorrow evening, I'm going to be on with Rainer Shea. He wants to talk to me about religion and American politics. So it's going to be wild. So, new upsurge. in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.